1, check, check, check. How we doing? Okay, here we go. We're back. We're live. It's really happening. It's live carrier advice. Check, check. It's every month on a Wednesday where we check in with Brian Riker, your DOT guy. We look at, there's been a lot of news. I think what I like is that doing this monthly, the news gathers on like brokering. That's what's in the news right now. I think we've got CVSA Roadcheck coming up. So we'll bring Brian in here in a second. If you've got something to say or add or ask, DOT, FMCSA, Clearinghouse, whatever your question is, put it in the live chat. Please do that. Also, if you see a like laying around somewhere, and you can spend it here. Spend your likes here on ATI. Thank you so much for doing that. Let's do this. Let's bring him in. He's on the phone. He is your friend and mine.
Hey,
He's here
Jay.
to answer. Hey, what's going on?
Yeah, didn't mean to cut you off without the video. I'm all screwed up. Good afternoon,
Well,
everybody.
it happens, man. I mean, we're here, We're doing the best we can. That's what trucking is all about.
Yes, it is.
Right? And fortunately, sometimes your best isn't enough. How do you like those apples?
No.
Yeah.
No. And technology fails us all the time.
Well, there's so many things that fail us on a regular basis. It's it's tough to be human. I don't think they and I don't think they accept that one during a roadside.
No.
No.
But they'll give the artificial drivers with the self-driving trucks a pass on roadside. They're trying to make it where they don't even have to be inspected.
Tells you something about the future. Are we supposed to
Yes.
are we supposed to be getting a hint at this point? You think? Maybe.
It's only a matter of time.
I know you can't see the screen on this, but there is this was sent in. I got a guy that'll transport it cheaper. David Tuber sent this in. We got a Viper on position 1 on a 3-car wedge. Could be a 4-car. Looks like there's something in the belly. Not sure. That looks pretty tight for a 4. Anyways, it's a wedge. Number 1 spot. This Viper has... So the back wheel has the straps through the rims. And then on the front, straps through the... Gosh, I don't even know. I'm not sure. We'll bring this on Dispatching Live tomorrow. All right, thanks, David. Join Dispatching Live tomorrow. Brian's on the road. Under 21 pilot
if I
program.
could see the picture, man.
I know. Well, and I have a video too. We'll show a video tomorrow. I can't bear to. It's awful. It's like a collector car enclosed off the top, and something happens.
Is that the Corvette that fell off the car?
Is that what's go? I don't know what it is. It's bad. Yeah, it's not good. Under 21 pilot program, the party no one is going to. You've heard about this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have, and I expected this because FMCSA put so many restrictions on it that it's almost impossible to participate in the plan unless you're one of the mega carriers. And that's not the crowd the under 21 drivers are going for. The under 21 drivers are the son of the farmer, the son of the tow operator, the son or daughter of the excavator and construction company that needs to be able to drive their truck. They're the ones that want to train and hire the under 21-year-old drivers, but they're requiring nanny BS monitoring stuff on the trucks and a whole bunch of unreasonable hurdles to jump through. It's a no wonder that there's only a couple hundred people participating in the whole program.
Well, it's interesting, and that explains it. Because, okay, so the ATA, large fleets, long claim, there's a truck driver shortage. I don't know how to weigh in on that anymore. But, okay, in January 2022, FMCSA announced the establishment of an under 21 pilot program. The program was built to accommodate about 1,000 carriers and 3,000 under 21 apprentice drivers. So, let's see, yeah. Okay, there's 4. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, representative from Mississippi, said at a Senate sub-hearing committee that only 4 apprentices are in the program. Although the pilot program
Mm-hmm.
is intended the pilot program is intended to accommodate up to 1,000 carriers, 3,000 enrolled apprentices. At the time of the FMCSA presentation on March 23rd, only 21 carriers had been approved for participation, and 4 apprentices are in the program. Wow.
Pathetic.
Wow. That's crazy.
It's going to give us no usable data to determine if under 21 is safe in interstate commerce or not. And honestly, I don't think they need a study. We have a lot of states where at 18 you can have a Class A license and drive 300 to 500 or more miles a day and never leave the state. And they don't have a problem with underage drivers wrecking and killing any more than otherwise qualified over 21-year-old drivers. So I don't think we even need this pilot program. We need to change what the definition of interstate commerce is for the driver qualifications, or maybe put some minor restrictions on someone between 18 and say 23 that are different than when you get over 23. But I don't even think this program's necessary. I've held a Class A CDL since I was 18 years old, and I have operated safely since then with no measurable difference when I magically turn 21 or 23 to make me a safer driver.
FMCSA plans tweaks to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. Hey, before we move on to this, that's right, Fritz has a question. Fritz says, I removed myself as an active driver from my company. Do I still have to do an annual clearinghouse query?
If you are not a driver, then no. Now, you removed yourself as an active driver. Does that mean you will never, ever get behind the wheel of one of your trucks operated on a public roadway or a publicly accessible area? Because even if you're just moving it around a public parking lot where there's uncontrolled access, that requires a qualified licensed driver that is drug tested in the clearinghouse. But if you are never, ever going to sit behind the steering wheel of a CDL required vehicle, then no, you do not need to continue your query.
I put a couple links in the live chat. If you feel like you need further clarification, feel free to email Brian on air at YourDOTGuy.com. You can visit Brian's business website, fleetcompliancesolutions.net. While we're here to help, this is, it's a YouTube program, so we're giving a light brush of advice, but don't take anything, and don't take anything you learn here as something you'll represent in court.
Yeah, yes. Make a serious business decision or legal decision based on the advice of two guys on YouTube. That is not a good idea. If you need to break this down in further detail that is specific to your exact circumstance, then I would be happy to give you professional help outside of this channel.
Perfect. So FMCSA plans tweaks to Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. To me, this could be a headline literally for the rest of eternity. But,
Yeah.
I don't know. So here's a comment we got on the trucker drug testing show we did. Harry says, stop drug testing for after-hours use of marijuana. Thousands of experienced drivers want to go back to work. Anyone caught texting and driving should be fired. You are impaired, just like being impaired from alcohol or drugs. And I know this is like, a no-fun, hot-button issue, but is there hope that one day they'll test marijuana properly and not cancel everybody that likes a little bit of cannabis and THC or whatever?
It is likely, but it is just not possible today.
Yeah, not today.
Test for impairment, like we have with alcohol, simply does not exist, and it's going to be very complicated to come up with a reliable immediate impairment test because marijuana reacts differently in everybody's body, and we can't even say that it reacts the same if you have a certain fat content or water content or certain race or sex and whatnot. There's just too much unknown because they still cannot do any type of federally funded drug research on marijuana to better understand it like we do alcohol, because it is federally prohibited. And so we have to test for after hours use, because all use of it is currently prohibited, because I have no way, nor does law enforcement, but as an employer, I have no way of knowing if you just smoked before you walked in the door or if you smoked 3 days ago at the beginning of your weekend. And I do agree with his comments about the cell phone being a form of impaired driving. It absolutely is, but that is something that is measurable. We know as soon as you hang up the phone, the impairment goes away, so we work towards hands-free or no phone use. Again, we don't have the testing ability, and there's a lot of money in that, so there are companies that are trying to work on it, but we just currently don't have the testing ability to tell whether you're impaired or not by the substance, so it has to, out of an abundance of caution, remain prohibited for motor vehicle operators.
I know it's an irritating issue, but seems like for right now, but I would say two pieces of good news. But again, this is for your grandchildren. Good news for your grandchildren. DNA testing, in crimes like on a knife or whatever, didn't exist in the past the way it does now. And also just the fact that you can even say marijuana without being tackled and handcuffed. I mean, that's progress too. So, maybe we'll get there for your grandchildren. Good news for your grandchildren. That should be a new segment.
Yes, and we have to look at the fact that not every state has legalized this yet, and some areas have decriminalized it, meaning they simply are not prosecuting, but the law is still on the books that it's prohibited. So again, until it becomes a legal substance with reasonable controls like alcohol, it is just going to remain off limits to truck drivers.
Right.
And now you were about to bring up the changes to the Clearinghouse, and
so
recreational user.
We've got well, that's the thing. If you're in trucking, that's the thing. This show should be called Bad News for Truckers. Right? That's a daunting thought. I know. New survey of owner-operators highlights importance of knowing operating costs. According to a survey in 2022, owner-operators who knew their cost of operations earned $1.25, $1.15 more per mile and $1,500 more per trip versus those who did not know. That's interesting. An owner-operator who knows his or her cost is better equipped to choose which freight region type of operation is best for their business, as well as being better able to negotiate the rates.
Absolutely. That's just business 101. Know your cost of goods sold. In this case, the goods sold is your labor and access to your equipment. And what this really means is those that can accurately measure their costs are probably using other business skills to properly run their business and just generally understand that this is more than just the job of physically driving the truck. I don't mean to demean those, and I hold a Class A license, and I don't drive as much as I used to, but I still do drive on occasion, and that is difficult. But there's so much more to being an owner-operator or a small fleet owner than just being a good truck driver. And business acumen is top on that list for success.
I honestly, I do believe, I've got to believe, after many years of, there's a lot of, I think YouTube and Facebook, social media, unbelievably, social media has had an impact on trucking. Would you say? Like, people's awareness
Absolutely.
and what they think about, right? And boy, that's how interesting is that? And I would say over the past probably give it 5 years back, I think there's been a lot more awareness and discussion on this topic. There's a lot of places now on social media that talk about business and owning your business and thinking about your costs. So, yeah, I mean, education actually works, man.
Yes, it does. I've said it time and time again, and I've said it before. We used to buy data on the vehicles that were sold in our market where we transported cars just so we knew what our volume was going to be. And the information is out there for you to make these educated decisions instead of just buying a truck or hiring a driver on a gut feeling or entering the industry on a gut feeling. I still get folks that want me to process their new authority, and I've asked them, have you priced your insurance? Have you priced your truck? Do you have a source for work? Yeah. I just need my authority. And then 21 days comes and insurance is not filed, and yeah, I'm working on it. Man, this is more expensive than I thought, and on and on and on until they just simply never, they spend $1,000 for an authority package and never even open their door because they weren't expecting the $25,000 or $30,000 insurance cost, and or they fail within 2-3 months of starting because they didn't accurately project the costs of operation and the cash flow and everything else. And I'm not talking failing because they got a bad truck that just happened to break down on them or bad luck from an accident. Just simply they thought that they would get a weekly check from delivering their cars to their customers and weren't prepared to pay the bills while they're waiting 30, 45 days for their money to come in.
You know, I'm over here, I'm listening, I'm thinking, so I just started drawing a graph, like, is there a simplified, like, business startup form where you are forced to just find, research and find these basic costs of start? Because me and Ty get it too. We're actually baffled by some of the emails, texts, and phone calls we get about not having looked at some of these basic things. And we don't want to be mean, but we're baffled.
There are some sources for that, and actually, as much as it pains me to plug them, but they are a good source of information for the industry. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association has a class called Truck to Success. You and Ty have attended it before, or at least Ty has, because you've gone live from the class, and together, Ty, you and I spoke to Louis Pugh and a couple other people from there, but they have a class about this. But they also have short videos on their YouTube channel, and they used to, I don't know if it's still on their website, have Excel spreadsheets where you can plug in your numbers and see what it's going to cost you to start up and run a trucking company so that you're better prepared. And really, if our education system was still teaching home economics and stuff like this is no different than making a budget for your house. You wouldn't go take a job that you don't know what it's going to pay because you know what it costs for your rent or your mortgage and your food and your lights and all that. So why would you start a business when you have no idea where your customers are, what the profit is, and where the revenue is coming from, or even when it's going to come in? This is why, and I don't want to sound like I'm standing on a soapbox, but this is why I tell everybody, go to work for somebody for a year or two in the industry to find out if you even like it before you invest your life savings in getting it started.
So here's the irony, and I didn't put their link in here because I don't want to weigh in either direction. We do know about the class. We did talk to Louis outside the class, but I don't believe there was any access to the class, so we don't know what they taught. Which is ironic.
Yeah, I know that they...
Yeah. I know about the class.
I know that they have a sample video up about their class because they were promoting it. And in fact, at the Mid-America Truck Show in Louisville last weekend, they had a seminar based on the class that was a high-level overview of what they teach that they had made available. And even there, just Google is your friend. How to create a business plan. Write it out. Figure it out before you ever start doing it. And I will tell you the times I haven't researched a project are the times I've lost money or lost my shirt.
So so here we go. There's another truck to success. I'll just share the link. I mean, it definitely would be worth it to find out. You know, I think it's $250. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, it does,
but it's also you have to go to Missouri. You have to go to Blue Springs, Missouri.
They're working on an online version of it that I think
okay.
they have up and running too. Yes,
okay.
A Zoom version.
All right. Well, cool. Well, yeah. So, because what I was thinking about, like when you walk into a dealership, well, in the old days, and they have the Foursquare, and whether you want to finance or cash and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, there should just be a basic, you know.
Yeah, there really should be.
There should be. Everybody should have a copy.
Yeah. What are you expecting to walk away with at the end of the week?
Where are you going to get your loads? Where are you going to run? You know, what at least what you think, right? What's your budget?
Exactly.
And then your personal, right? And now, what are your personal costs? How much is your house payment? How much is your car? How much is your wife's car? How much is your food?
Yeah.
What are you hoping to get? And then you go to the bottom and you go, wow, what am I doing?
Yeah, well, think about it, folks. A business doesn't just mean that what's left over is yours. And I see that happen so often where you have a good week. This is not like Shipping Wars on TV where they do some high-level numbers and, oh, look, they got $5,000 left over on this run.
Yeah.
Yeah, out of that $5,000, 30% of it right off the top. So $1,500 goes to Uncle Sam for taxes. Then you've got to have the cost to replace and maintain your equipment and retained earnings to grow your business. And so you might walk away with $1,000. And where most people make a mistake on their business plan is they don't include a reasonable paycheck for themselves. They're going to live off of those scraps and leftovers, and that's no way to run your life at home. You have bills to pay that don't care whether your company's making money or not. You need to have a plan and an emergency fund and all of that good stuff.
But I know this is boring. Business is boring. Okay.
Yes.
Let's see here. Jay, this was interesting. Eric had sent this to you. Thanks for the question. I'm assuming you want to know if the new entity is using hotshot trucks versus high mount or stinger steer. Short answer, no. There's no direct way to determine the type of equipment used by FMCSA registration data. This seemed interesting. Do you want to elaborate at all on what this was?
I'm not exactly sure what they were getting at, but
I think they wanted to know if they could determine the equipment, right?
Yes, there is no public registry of the type of equipment. DOT doesn't care what your vehicle is. All they ask is CDL or non-CDL, straight truck, bus, trailer. And so there is no way to know what the carrier has without asking them to send their fleet list or proof of what their fleet is if you're concerned that it's going to go on the wrong type of trailer.
Let's see here. I was talking about the coalition this past week at Car Conference. I was with John Larrick and Joe Bercari. And in fact, it's probably a good time to, I've been talking about AHA, IATA, ATI. I think we're on a precipice here. What I mean by that is that not at an intersection, not at a crossroads, but an on-ramp. There's an opportunity here. We've established that we go live all the freaking time. And we continue to grow. And I think that IATA has made, obviously you can speak on IATA's behalf, has made real inroads into building a strong membership organization, right? AHA
yes.
Clearly has many members that represent car hauling business owners' fleets, right? In new and used.
Yes.
And I see an opportunity. I don't know when the opportunity will come to fruition, but to take those members and bring them onto this social media platform that continues to look ahead. And the reason I say this is John Larrick is seeing it. He's seeing it firsthand. You know, I stood at Car Conference in the hallways with John Larrick after he was up on stage with me, and he expressed, he was like, wow, this is, this really is, I need to do more of this. I think those were his words. I need to do more of this. And I thought, that's right. We all really do.
Yes. That's the benefit and the power of association is one voice gets lost in the crowd, but together, in unison, your voice will roar over the crowd and your point will be made.
And that's the thing is that, because when I look at the coalition, I mean, I'm impressed. I was talking about the coalition to other business executives in various verticals in automotive. Nobody had heard of this yet. Not that I had talked to. And it's a heck of a coalition. I think that I'd like to learn more and talk about it live. And I also think it's fascinating that a group that has been very good at being present in social media and Washington is, and they oppose the increase that the coalition is looking for. Who am I talking about, Brian?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're talking about the ones we were just mentioning with
and that's my
the beneficial
point.
Program.
So they are doing so good.
It's funny how politics makes strange bedfellows.
Yeah. That organization is doing such a great job at getting out there. And by golly, I think we need to do better too.
Well, OODA is a machine in Washington, D.C. They are a force to be reckoned with. I regularly find myself at odds with them with my support of the towing industry because they vehemently oppose tow truck operators making a reasonable profit. They seem to think that towing, you should be able to clean up an entire tractor-trailer accident for $2,000 or $3,000, and the reality is it costs most towing companies at least $20,000 or $30,000 in labor and equipment costs to make that happen. But that's another show, another day. That said, I had Colin Long, who is their legislative director, meaning he's their head lobbyist, speak at a Towing and Recovery Association event in Washington, D.C. this past March. And we have joined the coalition with them against speed limiters and insurance increase and a couple of other things where we have synergy. But there are areas where we fight like mortal enemies. And so again, as much as they're against us on weight increase, and they generally oppose size increases in any manner, they are fighting for high mounts to be recognized with the same overhang as Stinger steer, which is technically a size increase and a benefit to the car haul industry because a lot of their membership, and they became aware of this several years ago, a lot of their membership operate high mount trucks, and so they feel they have to support them there, but they fundamentally oppose weight increases. And it's not just our industry. They have a lot of members that are grain haulers and tank haulers where they're paid by the pound on their product that could benefit from weight increases, and they act contrary to their membership's best interest on those as well, because their primary member is a dock bumping, door swinging dry van hauler that they don't want to increase weight on their truck.
I mean,
they're paid by the mile, not by the piece.
You know, I see Louis Pugh on LinkedIn in Washington, and I think, why don't we have Hank Seaton on? I know he still speaks at AHA.
Because I'm not gonna. Jay.
Well, no. Well, it's funny you say that because ATI is accessible. I'm gonna stop on my little, one of these days, and because I'm a big fan of action. One of these days, we're gonna do something, and I'll be here, and I'm ready. I don't know.
I am an advocate for the underdog. It is what I do, and I visit state capitals and Washington D.C. regularly, supporting the industries that I work in and what's beneficial for them. And OOIDA has a significant advantage over IATA and AHA, and it's the sheer number of members that they have. They have 150,000 members, so that.
But that's why grassroots.
The attention of the lawmakers.
That's why grassroots exists. There's grassroots we could be rooting, but we don't. Anyways,
oh, absolutely, and we're our own worst enemy because we sit here and bitch about something should be done about this, but we don't do it. And as president of IATA, John Larrick really understands how important it is to have the membership lend a hand. We don't necessarily need your money as much as we need your voice. That's what all the associations I'm involved with. We need your voice.
I'll jump in further. Auto Transport Everything is such a strong group. It seems like, I don't know how one harnesses that energy. I mean, there's a lot of energy on that group. That Facebook group. Think of the driver knowledge. It's amazing.
I don't know. I wish I had that answer. That's what we've been trying to figure out.
It. Yeah. That's what I thought.
And we need to harness that energy for membership. We need to harness that energy by having a product like OOIDA is an insurance company masquerading as a truckers organization, and that's where their money to spend millions of dollars a year on lobbyists and attorneys come from, is selling their inferior insurance product. And we don't have that type of money. That doesn't mean we can't be effective. It just means that we're going to have to work really hard at it.
Well, and that's where I think on that coalition list, my gosh, there are some heavy hitters on that list, right?
Well, that's a great way for smaller groups like us to get our voice heard, because again, that becomes a amplifier for effort when you have lots of small trade associations and a couple of big ones that join together in a coalition, because you can leverage the larger ones like the auto manufacturers that are part that have their lobbyists and the experience with dealing with lawmakers. You can leverage their experience and their access and reach to make sure your voice is heard.
It's an awesome list. I mean, it really is impressive. The companies on that list. Okay, so we'll go another 10 minutes or so. I did want to point out, I've seen some articles recently. FMCSA extends comment period on upcoming rule to crack down on unscrupulous freight brokers. FMCSA signals intent to move on OOIDA broker transparency petition. What is happening? Owner ops sound off to FMCSA on need for more light on brokered rates. What is going on in this arena?
There is an attack on brokers that partially is deserved because the brokers have not always been honest. There's an attempt to strengthen the current broker transparency regulations that allow any party to the transaction to see what's happening by making them required to be electronic and prohibiting brokers from waiving your rights in their contract. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I really don't. The position of IATA is we need broker transparency and we need a clear definition of what a dispatcher is to put that to bed. And the position of the FMCSA is they don't believe they need to clearly define dispatcher, that it is defined as a bona fide agent. Now, whether they're going to move on and define what a bona fide agent truly is instead of their very vague definition, I don't know. The important part is to define whether you can work for one or more entities simultaneously. But really, the FMCSA is mostly concerned with stopping illegal double brokering, where a company masquerading as a trucking company takes the load and then rebrokers it to somebody else, and nobody gets paid except the fraudulent company. That said, OOIDA wants useless because today's brokerage does a lot more in the supply chain than the brokerage of 40 or 50 years ago. So the broker has rates that they're collecting for services that have absolutely nothing to do with the trucker that hauls the load. And so they're completely irrelevant, the dollar amount the broker made overall for handling that load. And so you're going to get transparency, but you're only going to get transparency into the line haul portion, which can be a made up and arbitrary number. So you're truly not going to have transparency. And so I think it's a giant waste of effort. And quite frankly, I don't give a crap what my broker's making off a load. I know what my services are worth, my lane is worth. If I can't make a profit at it, I don't haul it. It's really that simple. And I'm not worried about somebody else's piece of the pie. I'm worried about my piece of the pie.
What's interesting, you mentioned dispatchers. I thought it was about brokers keeping a large part of the pie. But this issue is so convoluted. That's why I brought it up. I wanted to see if we could get any understanding here. I'm going to move on, okay? I'm going to move on because we're running out of time. Question, D-Man. Hey, can non-CDL Class C drivers still get violations on the Clearinghouse?
No, because they're not allowed to be in a DOT-regulated drug test. So if you're in a DOT-regulated drug test and you do not have a CDL, they cannot report that to the Clearinghouse.
Right. Non-CDL,
even if
no
you have a CDL,
okay.
Even if you have a CDL and you are operating a non-CDL vehicle, then your violation should not be reported to the Clearinghouse. Now, some carriers are trying to skirt that with using the required actual knowledge reporting, but I do not believe that that is allowable. We have a duty to report actual knowledge of use, such as when you get a DUI or have been arrested or something like that. We have a obligation to report that to the Clearinghouse if you are a CDL driver subject to the drug testing regulations. When you're in a non-CDL vehicle, you're still required to be drug and alcohol free, but the Clearinghouse is only for CDL holders currently. So, no, you should not be getting a Clearinghouse violation as a non-CDL driver. Now, the one caveat to that, if you hold a CDL and you're applying for a non-CDL driving job, that company must query you through the Clearinghouse to make sure you're not already in the prohibited status, because if you are, then you're prohibited from operating all vehicles, not just CDL required vehicles. So that's the one area where the Clearinghouse applies to a non-CDL driver, is if they happen to hold or have held in the last 3 years a CDL. So if I run your MVR because you want to come to work for me and you gave up your CDL a year ago, I have to run you through the Clearinghouse to make sure that you didn't give up your CDL because you failed a drug test and were in the prohibited status.
So, hey, D-Man, I put, there's on air at YourDOTGuy.com. That's Brian's email. He's got a company, fleetcompliancesolutions.net. You may want to take this offline because D-Man says the company made him do a post-accident DOT drug test, came back positive. Now he has a violation on his regular driver's license. Can he fight this?
Well, under the actual knowledge part, he won't have a violation on his regular driver's license unless law enforcement was involved in the test. You won't have a DUI for a drug or alcohol violation unless law enforcement ordered the test. And if law enforcement ordered it, then no, there's nothing you can do about it. It's a legitimate test. So if you had an accident and you were under a prohibited substance and law enforcement ordered the test, then it is going to be reported to your driver's license. An employer cannot report anything on your driver's license. Now, if the employer did require you to do a DOT regulated drug test and it came back positive, then it would be reported to the Clearinghouse. But with you not having a CDL, that should not be a valid report, nor should have you been in the DOT drug testing pool. That said, they can still make you take a workplace drug test as a non-CDL driver for the exact same substances under the exact same conditions, and they can't report that to the clearinghouse, but they can report it to prospective employers that are doing a background investigation on you. And so if this happened, this is probably above what my consultant company would handle, and you should contact a transportation attorney such as Hank Seaton or Brandon Weitzman or one of them.
Transportation attorney, interesting.
Because non-CDL drivers being required to take a DOT drug test turns into more of a civil rights violation than anything else.
What I'll do is, there is a law firm, the Law Office of Seaton and Husk, which is interesting. This is what I'm talking about, Brian, is, circling the wagons, right? I mean, here is D-Man on a YouTube channel getting in for further information that may be helpful. I just put the link, transportationlaw.net. That's the Law Office of Seaton and Husk. And Hank Seaton is an attorney. We don't know if this is an issue that you can work out with them, but you may learn further of how to pursue this. That's pretty interesting stuff. Let's go to, CVSA International Roadcheck. You got another road check coming up, huh?
Yep, coming up in May.
May 16th through 18th.
I don't remember what the hot topic items
there it is.
Are, but
anti-locking braking systems and cargo securement.
All right, so make sure your straps are new and clean and properly installed, and make sure your ABS light is not on the truck or trailer, and that it cycles on and off with the key like it is supposed to. And shit. Excuse my language, folks.
You're good. All right, so let's see here. I'm sharing the information of the. So we got May 16 through 18, and the focus of it. So that's coming up. And you were just saying, make sure you do what?
Make sure that your straps are all in good shape. So learn the out-of-service criteria for how much, which is based on the width of your strap, how much of it can be cut, frayed, or abraded, and that they're properly installed on the cargo you're tying down. Because as a car hauler, your cargo is plainly visible, which makes you an easy target. And then make sure that your ABS warning light is not on your truck or trailer, and that they cycle on and off as the manufacturer intends during the self-check function with your key, because an ABS system is a DOT violation when it's not working properly.
And finally, Statehouse bills call for speed limit changes. Oh, man. The speed limit thing just rages on.
Well, there's still a couple of states that have very misguided and unsafe policies that include split speed limits for cars and trucks, where there are numerous studies, including those from Federal Highway, that show that traffic is safest when all road users are moving at the same speed, and speed differentials. And in some cases, some of these split speed limits, like California, are creating a 15 mile per hour difference or more. And that can be deadly for someone to rear end a commercial vehicle with that much of a speed difference. And ironically, Indiana is trying to correct their 5 mile an hour speed difference, and the Indiana Trucking Association is fighting against it. They want to keep trucks limited to 65 miles an hour in the state of Indiana, and I find that ridiculous. But split speed limits are a real thing in several states that cause problems for truck drivers, and they're just unsafe for the road users. And so I'm hoping that they can address some of that this legislative season.
Especially since people in general, I'm just going to say it, drive like bats out of hell. And when it's open road, they drive like even larger bats out of hell. Everybody knows this. So you got these trucks governed that are like speed bumps on the Autobahn. Giant, barely moving speed bumps. It is absolutely insane that people think that that's a good idea. That's crazy.
Yes, and it's just misguided information, because they want to put reduced speed limits, and then we have the speed limiter mandate for commercial vehicles that they're toying with. They would set an arbitrary speed of between 60 and 68 miles an hour that is not variable based on where you are. And that's because of bad information. On the standard police crash report, there's a box to check that speed was a contributing factor. And while that is true in a majority of crashes, what they're not telling you is most of those crashes happen when traffic is flowing below the posted speed limit. And speed was still a contributing factor because the vehicle was traveling too fast for current conditions, whether it be traffic or weather or whatever. And speed limiters and split speed limits are not going to help that. Now, the biggest agency that disagrees with that is the National Transportation Safety Board. But if they had their way, we all would be doing about 2 miles an hour with bubble wrap on our vehicles, and nobody would get hurt ever. And I'm not advocating for anybody to get hurt, but I am advocating for a reasonable amount of risk to be assumed by roadway users in the name of efficiency and productivity, and that includes allowing large commercial vehicles to travel at the same speed as cars. So if they think that 70 miles an hour is too fast, then they need to slow the cars down, not keep the trucks restricted.
Right. Well, everybody wants to know, why are there 2 trucks in front of me side by side? Well, we can tell you why. Because you screwed,
exactly.
You whiffed it on the whole speed limit deal.
Exactly.
It's just unbelievable. There's always so much to talk about, and Brian, we appreciate. Yeah, what are you gonna say?
I want to finish up one thing on the Clearinghouse, because you started to bring the Clearinghouse up and we got down a rabbit hole. You were talking about recent changes.
Okay.
This is important both for motor carriers and CDL drivers subject to the Clearinghouse. The FMCSA has now set up so that within 12 months of when you've done a query on a driver, so the motor carrier is required to do a full query upon pre-employment, and then a limited query each year thereafter that you work. But we would never get any follow-up information. And one of the things the Clearinghouse was designed to prevent was a driver going and taking a pre-employment test at another motor carrier and failing it, then coming back to the company they currently work for like nothing ever happened, and now you have a driver that failed and is in prohibited status and you don't know. So the changes in that article they were talking about in the Clearinghouse is it is now going to send the employing motor carrier, whatever company's queried you in the last 12 months, an alert if your Clearinghouse record changes to show prohibited status, so that you're not accidentally using a driver that is in prohibited status. So for the motor carrier, this is good news, because eventually the states are going to have to tie the Clearinghouse to your CDL, and your CDL will automatically be suspended when you fail a drug test until you complete the return to duty process. But for the motor carriers, this is good news, because you'll know within 30 days if you have a driver that failed a drug test at another company and didn't tell you they were looking for a job or moonlighting somewhere or whatever. Secondly, for the drivers, just be aware that that is going to happen now. So make sure if you're going to go try to take a pre-employment before you leave your current employer, that you're going to be clean when you do that test, because your current employer is going to learn about it and they're going to be required to take you out of service until you complete the return to duty process. And there's nothing that prohibits them from terminating you when they find out you failed somebody else's drug test. So you may find yourself out of a job, facing a very difficult challenge to find an employer that will sponsor you to go through the return to duty process, which can cost you $3,000 to $5,000 to $10,000. And so just be aware that that is going to happen, and also be aware that within the next year or two, the states are going to be required to suspend your commercial license if you fail a drug test. So it's getting very difficult to use prohibited substances and just skirt getting caught changing employers or not reporting employers you worked for.
I'm really glad that you made a point to go back to that. Thank you, Brian. That's
a significant change in the Clearinghouse that will be beneficial for the overall safety of the roadway, because prohibitive drivers will not be able to drive beyond a couple of days from when they have failed a test. Instead of now, they may go months or years before they're caught. And also keep in mind, motor carrier enforcement is authorized, and in many states are currently running a limited query on you during a DOT check to make sure that you're not in prohibited status. So if you failed a drug test in the last 3 years, I suggest you check your clearinghouse record to make sure you're not prohibitive and take corrective actions. So you may be working for a company that's not compliant and doesn't bother with the drug testing program or the clearinghouse program, but law enforcement is now checking it at roadside, so you still could get caught, and then it is a serious penalty for operating a commercial vehicle when you are in a prohibited status. It's very similar to operating without a valid commercial driver's license. So just make sure that your record is straight in the clearinghouse, drivers.
If you have any further up, if you require any further follow-up, I'm going to put the links in the live chat again. You can email onair@YourDOTGuy.com. This is Brian Riker. His company is FleetComplianceSolutions.net. If you require any follow-up, please do follow up. He'll get back to you, and he wants to help. So, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Jay. And
yeah, thank you. Gosh, we did it. We almost filled an hour again.
Yeah.
Like, there's always so much.
If anyone's going to be in sunny Orlando, Florida, the week after Easter, so late next week, I will be at the Florida Tow Show. I am speaking on general motor carrier and driver safety topics for Allstate Insurance in the Allstate Safety Tent, right smack dab in the middle of the outdoor exhibits. It does not cost anything to attend the show. There is no truck parking, so you have to find somewhere else to park your truck. But it's at the Hilton Buena Vista Palace in Orlando, which is Disney Springs area, right within walking distance of Disney Springs Resort. And it is this Friday and Saturday, and I will be presenting on both Friday and Saturday in the Allstate Safety Tent. And I'll be there all week because I'm driving a rotator tow truck down there for one of the distributors to have on display.
Well, it's interesting, too. So it just so happens this Friday, as of tomorrow, Ty is going to head down for the Repo Summit in Orlando. We were talking about that last night. So that's Repo Summit this week and Florida Tow Show next week. Wow. What a great time to party in Orlando.
And then I'm going to be in Orlando again the week after for 2 weeks after, the last week of the month, for the United Recyclers Group annual training convention, which there is a fee to attend that, but I will be speaking on Saturday on defensive driving topics. And so my trade show season has begun. And then in May, I'll be in Las Vegas. June, I'll be in Texas. August, I'll be in Indiana. September, I'll be in Ohio. October, I'll be in Tennessee. And November, I'll be in Baltimore.
Wow.
And I'm sure I'm missing a few in between.
Incredible. Wow, it really is trade show season. That's awesome, man.
Yes, it is. And hopefully the doctors figure out where this is coming from that I'm sure you've heard throughout the program, and we get it addressed because it's very difficult to speak right now.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating when when your physical system isn't 100% and you're trying to think and talk and communicate. So hopefully that gets figured out.
Yes.
Yeah, I know how that is. So, all right. Well, listen, everybody.
And now we filled up the hour.
We did it. Everybody in the live chat, I just want to thank you so much for being here, participating. Hopefully there was some infotainment shared today. So, Brian, thanks for everything you do, and really do appreciate it.
You're welcome, Jay. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I will see you next month.
Hey, guys, we'll be back in a month. Brian and I will bring that date out to you, but we'll be back in May, again, with live care advice. Please do join us. I saw a question about Super Dispatch. Please join us tomorrow live on Dispatching Live at noon Central Time, and we will talk more about Super Dispatch. So thanks, everybody. Take care, and we'll see you soon. See you down the road. Thanks.